You're on mute, but Sandra.
Hello, everybody. You would think by this point, right, we will know, but here we have it. I always tell people I'm not a technical person. That's why I went to law school, because I can't do none of this stuff. I'm just pretending. So we want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. We have some dynamic speakers for you tonight to address some hot topics that are coming up towards the end of this amazing campaign. For us to realize that this campaign is literally only 3 months old. And by the time we are done, we're going to be, what's it, 3.5, 4 months campaign. Probably the shortest campaign for president we've ever seen. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for sticking with this and being here and participating and engaging and ensuring that we do what we need to do to ensure that Vice President Harris is elected president and Governor Walz is elected vice president. So before we get started, I'll just quick opening. I like to tell the story of how all this started to make sure people know where we've come from and where we are now, and partly also to dispel the myth or notion that as Africans, we don't work very well together. So I started off wanting to organize and mobilize the African immigrant community, continental Africans, in the image of Win with Black Women, because I was one of the 44,000 the night that Vice President Harris, or rather the night that President Biden stepped down and endorsed Vice President Harris. I was on that call. I've been part of Win with Black Women since 2020. And that night was the greatest night of all nights. At the end of that, wanted to mobilize, put the Facebook page that I had created onto a WhatsApp group. And the person who manages that sends me a message and said, oh, you want to organize? Well, I've committed to help Dr. Fawad Sharif raise money for the campaign, and he wants to fundraise. You should maybe touch base. So I knew him, so I called him. Without any hesitation whatsoever, he said, okay, we can do that. What do we want to name it? I said, well, I already have a Facebook group called Africans in the Diaspora. He said, let's do that. And here we are. We've been doing it now since July 31st. We've been having these weekly mobilization meetings. We've been collaborating. We have been using our own individual skills and coming together to do this. We have a great team of people who have been pouring so much into this effort. And we have 3 more meetings, I think, including this one, or 2 more meetings after this, before the election. And it's been a ride, right? It has been a ride. And it's a blessing that it's sort of like I joke around with Fawad. I'm like, you becoming my best friend? What's up, dude? You know, we talk all the time, right? And we engage. And because of that, we're able to do this and engage with you guys. But I wanted to put that in there. Fawad, do you have anything to say to the people?
Good evening, Fatmata. Good evening, everyone. Obviously, like you stated, we've been doing this now since 2nd or 3rd week of July, and it's been a pleasure working with Africans in the diaspora. We have a panel of coordinators within the different states. They're all from an African diaspora from different countries in the continent, and it's just such a pleasure that we'll be able to amplify what we've been working on to make sure The Harris-Walz team wins on November the 5th.
Yes. Okay, so before we get in, we need our motivation. So we'll turn that over to Dr. Bull to give us some words of motivation to get us going.
Well, thank you.
And
You always switch my schedule, so I never know when I'm coming. But I'm
I
always
know. You know, you're always at the top unless
I'm
we
always
have, we're always at the top.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Hey, it's breast cancer month, so hence the pink. To the ladies out there, supporting you all and bringing awareness and for women. And I have 2 daughters for them to continually check and support getting things going. Folks, we are about 20 days to go to this election. And today I was just thinking, all those who are suffering from the hurricane and all of that stuff. And to say there's a bigger hurricane, and some hurricanes make landfall, others stay out there, they threaten the coast but never touch, and they dissipate into the ocean. Donald Trump is one of those hurricanes. Hurricane Trump is coming with the fury. It's a Category 5 hurricane, but he's not going to make landfall. We would make sure it doesn't. He's not going to make landfall. On the other hand, we have Vice President Harris. Think about the most beautiful day in summer and what you could think of, and how you feel on that day is what we get from Vice President Kamala Harris. So it's the extremes that we are experiencing. We're experiencing extreme joy on one side and extreme anxiety on the other side. Just thinking today, talking to another group of folks, and I just tell them that now is the time as Africans in the diaspora for us to think about ourselves. Because it's important that we cannot lose sight of who we are and how we got to this point. Donald Trump has raised that awareness for our consciousness, because for too long we've just assimilated and happy doing things. But right now we see the rise of the new Jim Crow in the name of Donald Trump. And we have to be very, very mindful about that. I told somebody for too long, we are a beautiful butterfly flying with eagles. And at some point in time, we just thought we were an eagle. But when the eagles turn on you, you become the lodge. And one of the phrases we've used every day out here when we meet every week is the fact that if you are not at the table, you are the menu. And think about the many ways that Donald Trump could cook us, bake us, grill us, barbecue us, deep fry us, put us in the oven, freeze us, steam us. Every which way but loose, we are the target, the Black people. I was talking to somebody today. I say, the Republican candidate for governor in North Carolina is trying to act like Trump, but he's already toasted. He's down 17 points. But the man he's trying to emulate, they say he is tied with Kamala Harris. And the only logical reason I come up with is race. We cannot lose sight of it. It's race. It's all about this white supremacy, and we have to call it what it is. For everything that has happened, think about Kamala Harris. Somebody says, oh, if we were to come up and say, oh, she had a DUI, imagine the race will be over right now. Completely over. This guy has 32 felony, several charges against. And yet, a sizable population of this country is standing by him. We need to be scared. We need to be afraid, and we need to stand tall. You know, we've talked about the RSVP. We're at the V right now, because there's still a window to register. So if you know anybody that needs to register, please encourage them to do that. You know, we've talked about sponsoring the campaign, but right now, V is for voting. Should be the largest V. Every time you see V, it's for voting. It is scary. It is scary, and we need to stand tall to do it, because the implications are great. And as I said, this is the most consequential for the world. It could be the end of Ukraine. It could be the expansion of the Soviet Union. It could be promoting dictatorship in Africa. All kinds of troubles would start in Africa, because when our leaders try to go for 4th and 6th terms, and they call the US ambassador and say, what's the US policy? If Trump is in the office, he's going to say, let them take care of themselves. I need to be a dictator too. So it's scary. He's talking about the Congolese. He's talking about Asians eating cats and dogs. Folks, there is immigration from Canada. Do you hear anything about it? No. They don't even have a border right there. It's open. The two shall be one. There are lots of illegal Canadians in this country, and you've never had that phrase, an illegal Canadian in this country. It's simple. So my message to you all is to dedicate this time. This is the time we talk to our friends, we talk to our neighbors, and we encourage everyone to go to the polls, because it is consequential. We cannot even allow this election to get within the margins of 1%, because they would litigate the pregnant child, the ballots, all kinds of things we would hear. So I'm just appealing to you all. Am I scared? Yes, I am, because I'm seeing Hurricane Trump. If there's a Category 7 storm, that's him coming for democracy. Let's hope that the winds turn him out into the ocean and don't land in this US of A anymore. That is my message to you all, and we need to take it seriously. So we look forward to the night. We know we have a donation link, and we're looking for more people to donate. The campaign still needs money, because that's what drives everything. And we need to push and push and push. So please, let's put the link up. Let's get votes to contribute, and make a promise to yourself that when you vote, you send that message out. I am going to vote tomorrow, so I'm going to post that picture. I'm going with my son. We are going to vote together, and I'm going to post that picture. I'm going to convince others. Let us keep sending the message that you voted. It would encourage other people and try to push the message of promoting Kamala Harris and Team Walz. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Oh, so you guys hear it, right? You hear it. He constantly drops some gems for us. You hear it. So we have, 20 days to prevent that humongous hurricane from hitting us, from hitting land. Keep it out there, right? So, but we got to put in the work to make sure it does not land. The donation link is on there. So remember, only permanent residents and U.S. citizens can donate. Only U.S. citizens can vote. But anybody can volunteer to make calls, to knock on doors, to tell your 10 friends, to tell their 10 friends and their 10 friends, and so on and so forth, to come out and vote. Remind people. You have your phone, you have 100 or 1,000, whatever amount of people contacts you have. Send them a text. Send them a text. Reminder, early voting, wherever it is you live, starts here. Please vote by so-and-so, and here's who you should vote for, right? It's crucial, crucial. We have an election that is so consequential that in the history of US elections, I have never seen, ever seen a large group of Republicans, not just elected officials, regular people, voters, show up at a rally for a Democratic candidate for president in these here United States of America. But that happened today. That happened today. If that doesn't tell you something, that should tell you how consequential this election is, how serious it is, how much the people who supported this man are now running from him, to the point to where they are showing up on national television for a Democrat who is a woman, who is Black and South Asian. In America, y'all. So I'm speaking to our people. Take this seriously. It's not just about I like him or I don't like her. It's about where we can go as a nation, as a people, as a world. Because you know the adage, when America sneezes, the whole world gets a cold. Serious. What? Do you have anything before I call our esteemed guest to speak?
Well, not much. I know this fatigue has set in. We've been working since July. I know people are ready. Africans in the diaspora is ready. This is a special moment. I've never seen this collective amplification of our collective votes and working together. And obviously, this past weekend, we all collaborated. We went to York, Pennsylvania. We could talk a bit about that experience. We had a great time. It was an interesting experience. Obviously, York is the western part of the state. I think it's predominantly Republican, but there are scattered Democrats in there. So that was pleasing to see that obviously that there are Democrats within that red county. And obviously, going back to what you're just talking about, I've been here long enough. I've never seen collective Republicans openly supporting a Democratic ticket. This is not about policy anymore. It's just the fact that the state of the union itself. This is how dangerous this Hurricane Trump is, as Dr. Bull alluded to. And we're in different times. We've never seen anything like this before. So I'm glad that Africans in the diaspora are excited, and they will continue to support this ticket until the last day.
So we are going to introduce, mind you, I've never met this one in person, but I am so impressed, and I can't wait. I just cannot wait. And I'm sorry that I'm putting up all this hype, but she has an amazing story, and I want her to tell her story. She's from Minnesota. She's running for a House seat in Minnesota. And how she got here is amazing. She has, she'll be the first not just Kenyan, but African?
The first Kenyan born in the whole entire United States. Yeah.
The entire United States. So, my people, may I introduce to you Hulda Hiltsley.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, my sister, Fatmata. It is an honor to be here. I am smiling from ear to ear because this is a space that, is so sacred. Because again, I think one of the speakers alluded to, I think it was Dr. Ford, that we as Africans, there's this sense of like we don't come together. So to be in this space with all of this amazing folks, I'm excited. I'm energized. This storm or this hurricane, as Dr. Bull put it, like we have 20 days to make sure that it is diverted back to sea. So let me first of all acknowledge this group and all the leaders for just an amazing job. Somebody said it's exhausting. Yes, we are all exhausted. But at the end of the day, I look at this as, a labor of love, right? I have almost a 1-year-old, and I remember when I was pregnant with my son, I'm nearing birth and I'm exhausted and I'm tired, but I think about the outcome and I get energized. And so what we put in now, will determine that outcome. So I'm super excited to just be in this space. And so just a little bit about me. I was born in Kenya, came to the States when I was 9 years old. As many of you, you have your testimonies and stories of how you got here, how your family got here. We came here, and for the longest time, for 11 long years, we fought the immigration system. And again, many of you are very familiar with that story, right? And so after 11 long years, we had only 48 hours before being deported. And we petitioned, my church and my family petitioned then Senator Paul Wellstone. Some of you might have heard of him from the great state of Minnesota. And he really fought for our case. And then within those 48 hours, which rarely happens, and our sister Fatimata can tell you, that is not only by God, right? And so our case was overturned. And at that moment, I didn't know what God had in store for me, for my family. But I look back now, 20 plus years later, here I am running for an office in the state of Minnesota and on the verge of making history. I know that, Kamala always says, yes, I'm making history, but I won't be the last. I'll be the first, but I won't be the last. And I'm always thinking about that. And I'm always thinking about, well, what does that look like? And we'll definitely dig into that in a little bit. And so for me, I got into this space because I did a lot of community work. I was the president of the largest Kenyan organization here in Minnesota for a couple of years. And I really was ingrained in this system, and I started seeing the inequities because we get so caught up in going to work, going to church, and that whole cycle of just making sure that we're taking care of our own, and our own sometimes extends to our various countries that we come from back in the African continent, and I started to realize that, there's a lot of resources here that we are not taking advantage of. If you think about the African diaspora, the African immigrants, we contribute over $109 billion to the U.S. economy. And if you look at the data that is not there, how much of it that actually comes back to the African immigrant communities, you won't find that data, right? But then there's data tracking literally other communities and how they are taking advantage, of their hard-earned money, right? That we have contributed that into the U.S. economy, but we're not taking advantage of the resources that this country has afforded us. And so when I started noticing and really experiencing the disparities where I would go apply for a grant, but we wouldn't qualify because we don't have, quote, a structured, four-wall building or whatever the case might be, I started to, fight against that, going to even, the departments, the state departments, and really voicing my opinion about, well, the reason why you're not seeing diversity, especially from the African community side, is because these grants that you guys are creating, our voice is not there. A lot of our people literally have their businesses in their basements, but yet they are making a lot of money. They're serving the communities in ways that, is missing from how this grant is structured. And so I noticed that, you know, a lot of this, you know, agencies, organizations, you know, were very open and welcoming to getting that perspective. You know, they weren't looking for it because they didn't think that they needed it. And so stepping into that continued to open my eyes in terms of what's possible. And so I found myself at the Capitol year in, year out during the legislative session, you know, hitting my head against the wall in terms of fighting for priorities within our community while we're seeing all of this money being distributed to other communities, and we weren't getting anywhere. And then I think what did it for me is that I was supporting a local candidate, and I went to a fundraiser we had for him. Actually, it was the current mayor of my city of Brooklyn Park here, the first Black mayor by that, you know. And in that fundraiser, our current senator, who completely has ignored us as community leaders, going to her and asking her for resources, you know, I went up to her and I introduced myself. I said, we've tried to reach out to you. We'll come to the Capitol. We'll come to your office. This lady literally hands me her card, walks away and says, well, reach my office. And I felt dismissed. And I think that's when the light clicked, like, wait a second, why do I have to go to her? I can be the person who is literally in charge of that, or sitting at the table, like one of the speakers said, right? And so she went up there, made her speech, and in the same breath endorsed another person in that party because she had announced her retirement. And I looked at her and I'm like, somebody needs to run. Somebody needs to run. And people literally around me were, oh, Hulda, what are you talking about? You know, Susan Pye is the chosen candidate. What are you talking about? I remember specifically that night, I'm here under the covers, and my husband's like, are you okay? I'm like, no. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, me Googling, how do I become a candidate? What do I need to do to run a successful campaign? Like literally Googling that. And so that was about 3 years ago. And so I ran for Senate, for state Senate. And in that year, it was the first time ever that we actually elected the first Black senators, to women, Black senators to the Minnesota legislature after 168 years of existence. That to me was crazy. You know, I didn't win, but guess what I won though? I won experience. I won a network. You name it. I knew exactly how this system worked and what I needed to really run a successful campaign. I learned about the behind the scenes. You know, when you're a candidate, you know, when we see a candidate out here, we don't think about the iceberg underneath the water, right? We just see that little top part, and that is the candidate. But you don't see all of the people that supports the candidate, and until you're there and literally ingrained into a race, you know, there's a lot that goes in. A candidate can't, you know, win a race just by themselves. And so I learned all of that. And so, you know, my husband was like, you had a long race. It was a tough loss. It took me a couple of months to recover. Me and my husband took a trip out to Kenya and did a couple of, you know, just trips here and there to just get me out of that funk, right? Because I was like, I worked so hard, and like we thought the momentum was on our side. But I remember we were in Kenya and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm calling, you know, community leaders here saying, did you go talk to Senator so-and-so? Did you do this? Did you do that? The omnibus bill is on the line. You need to do this. You need to do that. My husband literally turned over and he's like, can you go to the living room? Obviously, you're not done with this. So we just need to go back home so you can figure out what you need to do next. And so we came back and you know, and I was like, I'm not done. I'm not done. Now that I know what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and run for the House seat because the House seat is every 2 years here in Minnesota. And so I approached the current representative who's been there for 22 years, who most people don't know because nobody has really ever challenged him or anything like that. He's a part of that old, you know, flag bearer for this district for the DFL party. And I told him, look, I'm going to run. And if you beat me out for the DFL endorsement, okay, you know, I'll support you. You know, and he was his response was like, how dare you come into this space? Who are you? What qualifies you? What gives you the permission to run, right? And to me, I was like, wait, who are you talking to, right? That was literally fuel for me to get into this space and make sure that I beat him. Eventually, with all the pressures and really me launching my campaign and really coming out strong, it, I think, played a role into him finally retiring. When I reached out to a couple of legislators for endorsements, some of them were like, nope, you're the one who pushed this guy out. I'm not supporting you. And I was like, that's fine. You don't have to support me. I got this, right? And so to make the story short, I learned a lot in the last 4 years, especially in this space. And I realized that we as a people have so much power, untapped potential to change the trajectory of this country as the African diaspora, meaning that we have the economic leverage. We make a lot of money in this country. That's number one. Number two, we have numbers. We have numbers. In the state of Minnesota alone, we account, especially the African immigrant community in this state, we account for 37 to close to 40% of the population in terms of African and African Americans combined. And so we have the numbers to literally elect who we want, if we are collective enough, right? But that's the issue that continues to come across, and that's why I was so excited to talk to Fatmata and her telling me this is my vision, and I was like, wait, time out. This is the vision that I've been waiting for. In bringing all of us together, and I told her we have so much power that when other people, especially candidates, who are running, who need money, right? We can say, you know what? All of us coming together, $5 will give that candidate everything they need, and they don't have to sit here and spend time fundraising, spend time trying to convince, so-and-so to give them money. They can focus on actually getting to the doors, getting to the voters, being a candidate. That's the power that we have. In each individual state, we have pockets, right? We have pockets of where we live, from California all the way to New York, to the Midwest, you name it. So I'm super excited that I'm shocked that I have never heard of this group until a friend of mine, told me about it. And I'm super excited about what the future holds. Yes, we just started this year, and this is a great way of starting, but I see, oh my gosh, endless potential of what this group can do and the impact that it can have, not only in the political arena, but in the economic arena, in the social. Like, I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing doctors, I'm seeing lawyers, I'm seeing, corporate executives. That alone is net worth enough for us to make an impact. And then also, the last thing I want to say is our young people. My heart is on the young people, and me coming here from Kenya and having really strong ties back home, and I started investing back home because I was like, I'm gonna go back home and I'm gonna develop Kenya. I'm gonna do all this. My friend, I grew up when I got married and I had kids, and I'm like, this American kids are not going back there to, quote, enjoy my assets, right? And that was another reason why I decided to run in this country, so that I can build wealth here for my kids. There's nothing wrong with investing back home. But when things are changing, we have to also have a shift in our mindset about the realities that we live in the sense that some of us are being buried here. Most of us are not going back to our various countries to live. We are not retiring there. The country that you left is not the same country that is right now. So we have to think about, what does that look like for us, for our generation, for our kids' generation? Because I don't know about you guys, but here in Minnesota, we are seeing a rise in mental health issues. We are seeing a rise in suicide, not in adults, in young kids, in our babies, and we are sitting here literally not having conversations about things that are impacting our community, especially our young people. So when we continue envisioning this collaborative space, we also have to keep in mind, I would hope that the founders of this space would also keep in mind the young generation. How do we support our kids to embrace their identity here in the US, but at the same time, teach them our values, our culture, you know, from where we all come from. And I would hope that that would be a part of that vision as well. So with that, I would love to answer any questions. There's a lot that we can talk about, but I would hand it back over to my sister Fatmata for, you know, any questions.
Guys, give her a round of applause. You give us hope, and just hearing your story, hearing your energy, and you speak to why we started this group in the first place. I know we're excited about Harris campaign and all this stuff, but we knew there has to be the next step after she wins. And you are talking about that, and we're excited. You give us hope. Pamata or any of the other coordinators here? Obviously, if anyone has any question, please type in your Q&A, your questions in the text there. We have people who can read your text, your questions, and your questions will be answered. Just put your hands up, it will be called, and type in your questions.
There's a question there from anonymous attendee.
So the question is, with the divisive rhetoric on immigration, are you concerned about Republicans painting a vitriolic campaign regarding your former immigration status? And how do you handle criticism on being formerly undocumented?
That is it on the chat? I'm sorry.
It's in the Q&A.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you look at the history of Trump and the policies that he's put in the past and the rhetoric around immigration, there's no question about it that this man is not about the immigrant community, right? He is, you know, when he talks about let's make America great again, what does he mean? He means that he wants to make America great again for white people, you know, going back to slavery if he could have that chance, right? And so when I hear about immigration, and yes, you know, this country has issues with immigration, and that is definitely a federal level, you know, matter that needs to be dealt with. I see here in Minnesota, the state itself has its own, you know, policies that we've put in place, you know, being a safe state, putting all those things that we can as much as we can, right, to be an inclusive state. But in order for us to really reform the immigration system, that has to be in the federal level. And the only candidate on the ballot right now that has a chance to help move the needle on the immigration, I'm not saying that she's going to come in there and solve everything, but the one person who's able to do that is Kamala and Tim Walz. And by the way, you know, shout out to Tim Walz. That's my governor. We are sad to lose him, but we are excited about what he can do because of his heart for the people. Minnesota is very diverse, and we are pro, you know, immigrants, and we've created again laws around protecting immigrants. We actually passed the last legislative session, passed driver's license for all. You know, I think Pennsylvania is another state who's done that. I don't know about New Jersey, but really that was driven by the Latino community, you know, and I was a part of some of the initiatives, but I look back and I'm like, where are we Africans? Because I know damn well that we also could have benefited about this, but most of us were busy doing what? Going to work, right? And so we need somebody who's going to champion the immigration chaos that continues to happen in this country and really provide leadership that requires and that amplifies empathy and common sense reform, right? So for example, the DECA program, you know, I have a lot of family members who are affected by the DECA program. I bet you if Trump wins, that's going to go out the window. We're talking about kids who are here as 6, 7, 10 months old, being shipped to a country that they don't even know what it is, you know? So that's what's at stake. So when I hear somebody talk about, well, Trump and immigration, that's who we need. No, we don't. As immigrants, this guy will literally use his executive power to overturn years and decades of fighting that we've done in this country. You know, and so when it comes to me, and I think that second part of that question, It talked about immigrants and my take on. Can you rephrase the second part of that question?
How do you handle Republicans maybe bringing up your former status as an undocumented person?
I tell him, you try to go through 11 years of this immigration system and then bring that to me. If you are able to do that and try to live a normal life during 11 years of literally fighting this broken immigration system, then you can talk to me about it. And so when I hear a lot of people, you know, especially the Republican side, talk about, well, these people need to do it the right way. Well, the right way ain't working. If you have to eat, you got to do what you need to do to eat. Right? I'm not telling anybody to go out there and break any laws, but guess what? If your family needs to eat, you will do anything and everything to eat. And on top of that, when we see why most of these people, why us as immigrants try to come to this country is because of the freedoms, it's because of the democracy, it's because of all of these opportunities. Somebody will literally sacrifice their life so that they can come here in the hopes that they can get a chance to provide for their family. So when Republicans, or really just in general, anybody who comes up to me and starts to have that immigration conversation with me, I'll tell them my story. I'm like, you try to go through this system for 11 years and then be 48 hours away from being deported from a country that this is all you know, for the most part. Then we can have an honest conversation about it.
Thank you. I saw Maureen, your hand was up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the great presentation. Huldah, that's a great, your journey is so amazing. Just listening to you, just give your story is so amazing. So I wanted to ask you, with your journey, how you've been since the first time you started this and then you lost and then you tried again. How what are the ways that you approach the African community in order for them to be more engaged in the civic matters? Because I know it's not easy, but what are the ways that have worked for you as a Kenyan born first generation? How has that journey been for you?
I'm going to be very honest, because I think this is a space where we have to be honest with one another about our shortcomings, about our strength, and then work on those, right? So my experience, especially engaging our African immigrant community here, especially the Kenyan community, we are good at doing certain things. We are good at fundraising for baby showers. We are good at fundraising for funerals, instead of, getting life insurance. We are good at all of these things that only creates or addresses the current situation we find ourselves in, right? But we haven't been good at creating sustainable pathways in most of these areas. And politics is one of those areas that most of us really would care less, right? You go and talk to somebody and you're like, hey, I'm running for office. They're like, what am I going to get out of it if I support you? And I'm sitting here going, okay, let me try this again. And also, I think it's so important to acknowledge how our communities work. How we communicate with one another. And so I found success in going to where our people are. If I put on an event, I'm not expecting anybody to show up. But if I go to a baby shower, if I go to a church event, and church is also another aspect that we also need to address, because most of our people go to church. But combining church and politics has been something that has been very difficult. And it's funny because the evangelical church is the one who is literally powering the Trump's campaign, right? So that's another issue for another day. I love my churches, but we have a long way to go because, when we distance ourselves from politics, we miss out. There's literally a gap there because if I get in, that pastor is going to come to me and say, hey, I need some money to build this community center. I need some money to run this youth programming, this elderly programming, and so there's a lot of educational, Maureen, that we have to do within our African immigrant community. And the last 2-3 years that I've been in this space, that has been a big part of my campaign. How do we do voter engagement? One of the things that somebody asked me, well, what do you think? You had momentum in your campaign. What do you think was amiss? When we looked at the data, my sister, we door knocked, I believe, 35,000 doors. And out of that, I literally got 1,900 votes. 1,900, when you look at 1,900 votes, when my district is 39% Africans, not African Americans, Africans, I was blown away. I was sitting here, when you looked at who voted, our people were not on the voting. And it didn't matter how much we went out. We went to events, we went to churches, we did anything and everything. Our people didn't turn out. If our people turned out alone, I could have won the Senate seat. So to me, it continues to show, even to this day. So one of the things that I changed in regards to this new race was that we looked at the data and we focused on the data. That's what my opponent had that I didn't have, right? She focused on the people who vote. And these are white people, Asian people, you name it. And that's what she focused on. I'm not saying we don't focus on our people, absolutely. But for me right now, the goal is to get in. And once you get in, and again, we have to understand the cultural communication piece, how we communicate. We sit back and we wait. We see what somebody's going to do. Once they get in, then we're like, oh, that's possible. Okay, I'm going to jump in and support, you know? So it's been difficult in the sense of participation, but I have to acknowledge one thing. Most of the money that I raised in my Senate race and this race came from the Kenyan community. I have to be honest, right? So, so they're able to give, but we have a long way in terms of engaging our people, educating our people about this civic process, because it doesn't start now. This process started back in February when you went to your caucuses and then you signed up to be a delegate. And then in around March, April, May, here in the state of Minnesota, you went to the convention, you cast your vote for your candidate to get the endorsement for the party, because as a Black person and as an immigrant and as a woman, I can't run independent and win. You need that party nomination ticket to win. And then after the convention, then if there's a primary, most of the time there is, you win that primary and then your name is on that November ballot. If you look at how many people participate from the caucus, close to zero. If you look at who comes and participates in the convention, because that's already determined, right? That is a very small number. So in most cases, whoever who shows up for that convention, especially in a very dominant, a district that I live in, which is DFL, whoever who wins that DFL endorsement means they win the whole entire thing, right? And imagine only a handful of people makes that decision. So having our people understand the magnitude of starting to participate from February all the way to November and not just coming in last minute and say, well, I casted my vote in November. Right. So there's a lot of education that we need to do for our community.
Thank you for that. And I'm glad that this recording is live so that our communities can hear that and the great information you just shared. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So we have some questions in the chat, but I wanted to bring in our second speaker first, since it's 9:20.
Yes.
And would you mind staying, Hulda? Do you have to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
That way, he can speak and then we can field further questions. Khalil, are you able to come on? Perfect.
Can you guys hear me okay? So
yes,
I was
so
hearing from your last speaker that, and I'm only joking on this, but I was going to say Asante Sana and then bring my Kenyan, small part of Kenya that I know to the table, and I know of the continent, but massively excited to be here with you all this evening. Sorry, I'm doing the call from my car. I think I did the last call or the previous call from my car as well, but we are leaving. Governor Walz is here at a fundraiser, happened to be in Maryland just a moment ago. Raising
so let me tell people who you are real quick, Khalil.
Oh, stop.
I'm excited because he's about to drop some knowledge on us, and I'm I heard some of it last night, And I needed everyone here to hear it themselves. Khalil Thompson started Win with Black Men. And, you know, I was just, when I found out we had Win with Black Men, I was just so happy, right? And, you know, I've heard him speak at different places, but last night I heard him speak about the Black male vote, and some of these polls and so on and so forth. And I was like, okay, this needs to be heard by people other than just us here in this little group of folks where you're sort of preaching to the choir. Wanted it to be heard live for whoever's logging in, and for people hopefully who are viewing either on YouTube or on Facebook, because I think it's extremely important to hear from someone who is, one, a Black man in America, two, has been working since 2022, because that's when you guys started, right? To organize and mobilize Black men in this country. So I will give the floor to Khalil Thompson. You know, he's also here in the DMV. I know we're kind of DMV heavy, but please listen and hear some of this knowledge being dropped.
Of course. Again, thank you so much. And my dear friend, we were on a call last night and she texted and she's like, do you mind? I was like, of course, I'll be on. And then I think I jumped on at 8 o'clock because I thought it was at 8. It was a little early and I was running behind. But in the reach of this group is far. I had an amazing African woman who's a dear friend of mine reach out to me from Charlotte. I know Lola, who does a lot of work with Bring Back Our Girls. It was also a part of this group and has been leading as well. So just want to thank the Carpe sisters out of Charlotte and Lola out of the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And then Yemi Jawando, the county council member in Montgomery County. He and his wife are dear friends and family. And so want to thank everybody for coming together. The knowledge that I can is simply thank you to you all for organizing this. You are mighty and you are strong. And just doing it. And Black women who led in 2020, who got their group started and their call started from Jotika Edie, Reverend Leah Daughtry, LaToya Jones, Christina Q, Holly Holiday, and others. Jotika had a call in 2022 that she invited some Black men to join for the Women with Black Women. I texted her after and said, hey, can you give me help? And her response was, just do it. And so many groups that have just started it, just go ahead. It doesn't matter if it's 5 or 10 or 50 or 50,000, bring community together and then grow from there. The factual pieces that I can say as we go into this election, I don't really discuss polls that much. I'm not going to get on the poll coaster and figure out what poll is where. We don't know what the sample size. We know African Americans and Africans and others in our country that look like people on this call are undersampled, meaning they only call about 200-300 people and then they extrapolate from that sample size to say this is what all people mean. That's just not true. We also know that people in our communities may not have landlines. So if you're not calling them on a cell phone or texting them to follow up on the poll, they're not included. Many of you, I'm sure, I don't remember the last time I had a landline in my house, unless it was connected to like some security system. And even then I didn't answer the phone. So they're going to be missing people who they're polling. What we do know, and here's the factual information, the most loyal group to Democrats and progressive causes are Black women. They vote bar none higher than anybody else. The second group that is a single digit percentage point in between are Black men. So when people are out there trying to convince you that there is a gap, that there's some division between Black men and Black women, they are doing that for their interest, not ours. So please, there is no daylight between Black men and Black women. That is a red herring. That's a false narrative that people are pushing so that they can sow division amongst our communities. Secondly, African Americans as a whole have been voting as a voting bloc anywhere between no less than 82% in every election. Going back to Bill Clinton, and I think just before that, but I definitely know from Bill Clinton to now, we have been voting at least at 82%. When Obama ran, it was at, I think, close to 92 to 93%, but it's hovered between 82 and 87 or 93 in that realm African Americans and Africans have been voting in presidential elections. So if anybody is trying to convince you that there's going to be these sweeping change to the other side, it's not. But however, we do know in our communities there are people who are going to vote for another candidate. That's okay, but we have to do the part of educating them. When they come to you talking about the stimulus check and the stimmy and how somebody else signed their name on it, what you should remind them is the only way that they were able to sign their name on it, which they did late and held up to put their name on it, was because Kamala Harris and others voted for it in the US Congress. So if you believe in that stimulus check, great. Then you believe in Kamala Harris because she was about getting it to you faster and somebody else wanted to make sure their name and they got credit for it when they didn't do the hard work. If you believe in supporting entrepreneurship, as I'm sure many of us do on this call, wouldn't it be great if there were 1 million forgivable $20,000 loans that would be coming out? Wouldn't it be great if you were a small business owner, instead of getting a $5,000 tax credit, you now have a $50,000 tax credit that you can to open up your small business? Well, great. If you believe in those last two, you believe in Kamala Harris as being your next president of the United States. If you believe that the only candidate who's come out ever to roll out a black male policy agenda, any presidential candidate who did that and did it in less than 100 days, that's Kamala Harris. So if you have people in your community who are asking you why they should and they're looking for perfection, one, my pastor says this often when he's at the pulpit, I'm not God and I'm not perfect. So if you're following me to look for that perfection, you're looking in the wrong place. I don't think, and I've said this as well, this is just a deposit that we as community members need to make sure it gets cashed when that person comes into office. We hear our policy positions, we believe in them. I think many of us got swayed by the culture in 2008 and in 2012, and we didn't hold that accountability on President Barack Obama. That's okay. But now we won't be hoodwinked, we won't be bamboozled, we won't be run astray. We know that whoever occupies that White House is 1600 Black Lives Matter way. Come January 20th, which just happens to coincide with Martin Luther King Day, which I think is serendipitous, we are going to want to make sure that in their first 100 days, the promises that were made to our communities are delivered on. We are going to hold them accountable. Just like every other group in America is going to show up and want to make sure they're heard, we are going to be heard. So what is amazing about this group, not only what we're pulling together, but I think you all should write your own white papers and policy papers. We're not necessarily over these next 20 days, but by the end of November, have something ready to go to whatever administration is going to be there. Organize your communities. No, there's nothing said that you need to be a high-priced lobbyist to go and lobby your Congress member. There's nothing that says that you can't do a lobby day on Capitol Hill just as a community of people on your own. Walk into somebody's office and demand a meeting. They work for you. The last thing that I will tell you is that when you go into the voting booth, either early or absentee, vote by mail, or on election day, you are the GM. You are the hiring manager. You are the venture capitalist who's about to make a decision about where you want to park your money and your interest. You have the right to either rehire, fire, or promote one of the individuals that you're voting for. I believe someone has earned a promotion because of their resume. And I have a 7-year-old amazing CEO who I hope is fast asleep right now. And if she has the resume and I want her to apply for a job, current sitting vice president, former U.S. senator from one of the largest states in the union, former attorney general of that state, former district attorney of San Francisco, a partner, a leader, compared to someone else who consistently lies and has convictions and does crazy other things, I believe and I hope she will be able to stand in front of her community and make sure that she gets that job. And I want all of the young girls to understand out of this country that you have the opportunity and the door is open to you. I've been thinking about this over these last couple of days, and it's actually hit me when I've been talking to her about, what the race is, why daddy's leaving, what daddy's doing for work. What if we don't do our final part? What if I remember, like many of us, I was sitting in that night in 2016 in my living room being like, I'm going to hop on the train. I'm going to go up to New York and just be in the Javits Center. I was like, let me wait. Okay, something's going to turn. And then it didn't. I don't want that feeling to happen again. And I don't want to have to wake up on Wednesday, November 6th to explain to my daughter why there exists unfairness in the country. I want to protect her innocence as long as I possibly can. So I challenge each and every one of you. If you don't have a voting plan, if you don't have a GOTV plan, that's okay. Now is the time to create one. Figure out who you're going to be voting for. Check off a box of where your voting place is. Check your registration. If you still can and you need to re-register, make sure you do it. Go to iwillvote.com tonight, iwillvote.org, check your voter registration, figure out, and not just your presidential candidates. Take a look who's running for school board. Take a look at your judicial races, who's running for sheriff, your district attorneys. You're going to run into those people in the grocery store far faster than you're going to run into Kamala Harris or Governor Tim Walz. So figure out how you can be an advocate in your community, and then create a GOTV plan with this group. We have a Get on the Bus out-of-state volunteer program that takes people from DC and Maryland and Northern Virginia to Pennsylvania this weekend. We're also taking people from South Carolina to Georgia, and then we're expanding it in the following weekend. But hop on the bus somewhere, go knock on a door, take a walk packet, do your part, be a part of this process. And I am more than happy to support, provide toolkits, do whatever we can. But this is a community doing this work together, and really excited that you all gathered here tonight.
Exciting. I mean, Khalil, you've continued to inspire us. And again, I'm not sure if you heard what I said earlier. We have two groups. Last weekend, we went to Pennsylvania. We knock on doors in York, Pennsylvania last weekend. Beautiful weather, beautiful landscape. We had a great time. We engaged some of the Democratic registrars there. And it was fun, right, Famata? And Maureen, and there was a couple of people. We collaborated with another team, and we had a bus ride up to York, Pennsylvania.
It was great.
There you go. Well, if I'm ever can be of help, I'm a text message away. Happily will hop on, and I'm here to help in any way I possibly can.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
so much.
You guys enjoy your evening. Great job.
Can you take a couple of questions if anyone has some?
Yeah, no, happy to. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Khalil?
Yes, I do. Khalil, thank you so much for that great speech. Hi, my name is Ike. I'm one of the members of this group. Question is a very sincere and direct question, right? So the narrative we hear out there is that Black men, to a great extent, are shifting towards the other candidate, right? And others are saying that that's not true. However, we don't see that reflect. I know you don't believe in the polls, like you just said. What can we, first of all, question number one, what can we do to encourage more Black men to actually look at our candidates? That's number one. Number two is, what is the message our candidate has for Black men? And then the third question, if you don't mind my asking, is truly and honestly, what is the problem with the Black men in our community that they're struggling with? You're on ground, you know the culture very well. Most of us on this platform are immigrants here. What is it they're struggling with so we can actually speak the truth? Thanks.
Sure. Let me try and see if I can remember and take all three. The problem is the third one, not necessarily focus on the polls, but why are they voting? And then what was the first one? Oh, what message can we share with them?
Exactly, yes. The message.
So on the poll side, there's going to be anywhere between, hopefully I'm saying, because I'm obviously voting for Kamala Harris, no more than 18%. But we've noticed consistently on the conservative side, they've gotten anywhere between 15, 16, 17% of the vote of the Black male population. It's going to happen. I don't believe we're a monolith, and I proudly welcome that. What I would love to see happen is people debate on policy issues, not personality issues. So let's have a debate over the other person's policy plans for African Americans in the Black community. Happily, we'll sit down and talk about that. What I don't want to talk about is we're giving out free money from FEMA and we're doing crazy things that are just conspiracy theories. I can't. I don't have time for that. I'm not going to give into that. So what I do think you can do, and I want, and I say this, and people have heard me say this, while I appreciate that I'm voting for Kamala, that may not be the message that everybody wants, but I am assured that if I can get that brother to go vote, I believe when they walk into that voting booth, the epiphany will hit them and they'll say like, well, wait a minute, am I voting against my interest? Am I voting for someone that, especially as a Black man, who called for the death penalty on 5 innocent boys in New York and put a full-page ad out in the New York Times? Did he throw paper towels at hurricane victims in Puerto Rico and see them just as nothing? Did he call countries from your continent a disparaging word and look at them with such disgrace? And if that is how he views you, what belief do you have that he is going to elevate a policy that benefits you? And so when I look at the opposite side, I think this is where you can start to have the conversation just as we did. Doesn't have to be about Vice President Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and candidate. You can just ask, if someone gives you, and it's going to say there's going to be $1,020,000 loan forgived grant for you to start being an entrepreneur, would you want that? If somebody's going to up you starting your small business from a tax credit of $5,000 to $50,000, is that something that you want? Is someone that is going to make it easier for you to get into a first-time home buyer program, is that something that you want? Are they going to clean up the climate crisis that we're having in clean drinking water in your community? Whatever 3 to 5 things that you want to focus in on, start it from the standpoint of, if is there a candidate that's doing this? Well, great. Then you believe in Kamala Harris. I wouldn't start from the standpoint of like, what's the difference between the two candidates? Take the policy positions directly to them, talk about the specifics, and then ask them, if that candidate does that, would you vote for them? And if they say yes, great, then you're voting for Kamala Harris. And it's a simple equation from there.
Okay, great. That's good. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Of course. What other? I'm happy to answer anything else. What do people have?
Mahini, I saw your hand up earlier. Is your hand still up?
I have a question if I can go.
Okay.
Can I
go
go?
right ahead. Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so my question is, so we've put in the work ever since, Joe Biden announced that, Kamala would be the one running. So we're putting in the work, trying to ignore the polls that keep going up and down. But you have some states and, election officials that are trying to change the rules at the last minute in Georgia, and some other, MAGA officials are saying they will not certify the results. So this is kind of giving us anxiety now, 3 weeks to the election. So if anyone is close to the campaign, do they have plans in motion to combat and fight these MAGA election officials and states that might refuse to certify the results on election day?
Florence, I
Great
think
question.
I provided. Sorry, I answered that question, Florence. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry,
Khalil. You
I
can share your
joined
point.
late. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Khalil. Share your point, but I did give you an answer. Well, go ahead,
So
sir.
I'm sorry that I missed his answer, and I'm going to refer back to his. I will just say what I'm very proud of in the state of Georgia. Close to 3,000 Georgians early voted. And what we know about early voting is that we, Democrats and people of color, early vote early and often. It broke the early voting records in Georgia. Why that's so important is that if there is going to be a hand count in Georgia, they're going to start now counting those votes, I think, and I have to go back and check the rules early to make sure they can bank those votes and it not be a long wait. But I think the point that we were talking about earlier, this is why down ballot elections are so important. If we had voted, there was an Asian American who was running to be Secretary of State back in, I think in 2022 or in 2020. If that person had won, the decisions to be made for how we're going to approach our voting process would be vastly different. If Georgians had elected Stacey Abrams to be governor twice, we would not be in this position. So it's not just voting for Kamala Harris. And I know you're asking specifically about it in this point, but I think we lose a part of this conversation when we focus it just on the top of the ticket. The decisions that are being made by statewide officials and by government officials in those states are elected. You get to pick them on your ballot. So you get to pick and choose who you want to vote for on that ballot. And if you don't choose the vote that I think is critical, you have these determinative things. So yes, I think there's a legal challenge that is going on right now to fight that in Georgia. I'm not sure we're going to win in the next 19 days. It's something we're very closely watching. But I'll give you a kernel and a nugget of positivity. We just saw Nebraska today re-enfranchise some returning citizens and those who are incarcerated, that felons now have the right to vote in this election. Why is that important? Because in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, it is an electoral college vote that they were trying to take away. That electoral college vote is there. And if felons can now vote in Nebraska, that changes the game. So think about the timing on election day. Most polls on the East Coast close between 7 or 8 o'clock. That still leaves the Midwest all the way to the West Coast to still hear all of the news of those exit polls and those returns. So as states are now getting called, people in California 3 hours late at 4 p.m. when they're about to get off work and maybe go vote, maybe making a decision about who they're going to vote for and think, does my vote still matter? So I love that this race is close because it means we can galvanize our communities to not leave anything on the table.
Yeah. I mean, Khalil, I totally agree with you in respect to the race being close. That makes sure we're not complacent. But myself, I'm not a big fan of these polls at all because I know sample sizes, the specificity of sample sizes are so, it doesn't really matter at all. It's a big game. It's a big joke. But nonetheless, we still need to do our work, and I'm glad it's close. That makes us to stay in and get close with it, and so we could do the work till the end of the day.
There you go.
And if I can add to that too, as a candidate running, I get a lot of, people at the doors who are anxious, who are scared, genuinely so, right? Rightfully so. What I want to encourage people, when you find yourself getting so caught up in what's in the media, what this poll is saying this, because honestly, a poll, depending on what source you're pulling from, will tell whatever agenda that they want to tell, right? So what I tell people who are super anxious about all of this, there's so much work to do that can keep you so busy until 8 p.m. on November 5th. So anything you can do when you get yourself anxious, make one more phone call, go out and support a local candidate, do what you need to do, write postcards. There's so much that we can do to keep ourselves busy, especially if you get to a point where you get so anxious to the point where it's physically, because I've talked to a lot of people who are physically exhausted, physically, just draining themselves because of all of this. And most of this information we know is misleading, let's be honest. So let's focus on what we can do as individuals and as a collective, more so than focused on what the next poll is saying, what Fox News is saying, or whatever the case might be. So I want to encourage, when you get to that point, do something about it. Like Michelle Obama said, do something.
Yep. I think the next person with a Q question is Pastor Israel. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for the guest. I mean, you really inspired me. As Dr. Sharif said, I am a pastor. What I am doing with the ministry is I went through both agendas, both the Project 2025 as well as Kamala's agenda. What I looked for were opportunities, areas of opportunities. So the question a lot of times is not what this person is going, why should I vote for you? What are you going to do for me? The answer to that is always, what are you prepared to receive? What benefits are you prepared to receive? Do you have the certifications, that you need? Because a lot of times it's not a question that candidate did not do anything. It's just that you were not ready as someone else, so they stepped in before you. So what I started doing with people, I started making calls. I was talking about her agenda. I asked them if they were a small business person. Did they have the proper certifications? I sent the Small Business Association a website, training website. I encouraged them to get their, certifications with the state, with the county, federal. Okay, these are things that you can be doing now, even before the election, so that when she wins, not if, when she wins and she puts forth that agenda, you're going to be ready in order to receive the benefits that she talked about. So it's a matter of getting people ready. And it's also with mental health, they're looking at doing something that is going to be positive for them, that to put them in a position. I'm also encouraging them to, one of the biggest opportunities is going to be construction. Okay, do you know any plumbers? Why don't you become a plumber? Why don't you become an electrician? There are classes that you can take that are a year or less to get you ready to help build those 3 million houses. Now that with the 2 hurricanes, that's probably about 2 million houses more. So there's a big opportunity there. So I'm getting people focused on what the opportunities are with her agenda, and that's going to encourage them to go ahead and vote for her, because now there's something personal. I'm getting ready for something personal. I can see myself in her agenda, and that's how I am getting people to the polls.
Thank you, Pastor.
Amazing.
Oh,
Ms.
wow.
Maini, I believe you're the next person.
So very, very quickly, can we have people who have maybe a question? So because Khalil is in his car, I don't want him to sit in his car all night. So if you have a question that you need him to answer, great. If you're gonna kind of give us some feedback, if we can wait for that so that he can answer any questions that others may have, that would be really great. So
I'll take like 2 more if that works. I can take 2 more.
okay, questions. Anybody, just questions. If you have a comment, just hold on and we can get that after he leaves. But if you have a question, Mahaney?
Well, actually, my question is actually more for Halda than it is for Khalil. But great, once again, great, phenomenal speakers. This is exciting as usual. So, but it's really more for Halda, so I can wait.
That'd be great. Thank you. Give it one second. Anybody has a question for Khalil?
Joe, who's your question for Joe?
Joe, do you have a question for Khalil or do you have a report?
Yeah. No, I have a question.
For Khalil?
Yeah, for the my dear brother who I just
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in Pennsylvania here, I mean, there are a lot of us who go around, many Black folks are complaining that, oh yeah, what the Democrats or what Biden and Vice President, administration has done for the Black, especially the Black man. And another question that comes up sometime is that why is it that the the campaign resources have been used, especially, campaign money is being used in a predominantly white communities in terms of hiring their children to canvass while they come to the Black community and ask them to, to only volunteer. And they're taking their votes for granted. They don't come and, all of these stuff. So what do you tell these kinds of people who are reluctant, at least, to be civically engaged in this manner, and they're seeing the campaign money going to white communities and being used for campaign purposes?
So the greater part about the work that we do is the campaign doesn't pay me. I don't receive any money, so I'm going to give you a very honest answer. I share your frustration. There was a call around noon today where the campaign asked Black operatives to come together who had worked on previous presidential cycles, and there was we were all excited because it was, I think it said Black Op family meeting. And we were like, okay, cool. We're going to maybe figure out some strategic things. Let's work on it. We get on, and there was a presentation that didn't look like anybody that was on this call. And they were using words of, we need you to go in the field, and we need to use your hands, and we need you to go canvas. And a lot of us followed up with that campaign staffer and like, A, you realize that all of us have full-time jobs. B, you didn't offer to compensate any of us to do this work. And C, we're good. Like, we were field organizers once in our lives. We're not here. We want to help her win, but you could have come to us 2 months ago and talked to us about policy. You could have come to us and asked us if our firms could help you do on social media. You could have talked about the contracting process for a lot of the $1 billion that you raised didn't go back. So Joe, I share your frustrations, and I've been very vocal about this with others to let them know. And that's why it's not a blank check. I believe she's the best candidate, but we are going to hold that candidate accountable when they're into office. And so the direct answer about how you change this, it's twofold. Some we can't. There is generational and institutional wealth that we are not going to be able to change in the next 20 days or in the next election. There is systematic things that I see in another life. I've done presidential advance, and the average age of the presidential advance staffer is anywhere between 19 to 24. That are people that don't look like on this call. They're not our cousins. They're not our sons. They're not our daughters. They're not our family members who are younger getting these opportunities. The great part about that is that doing that presidential advance, you get a security clearance. You get in the queue. So that when Presidential Personnel Office, affectionately known as PPO, makes a decision who they're going to hire on their slates, you're already in the pipeline to get that confidential assistant job, to be the advanced person for the Secretary of Commerce or the U.S. Trade Rep, and so on and so forth. And then you work your way up. The joke that I said when I did this, I'm 42 now, all of the rental cars for the trips were under my name because there was nobody who was over the age of 25 who could rent the rental cars. And so I do hear your frustration, but how do we change that? By this moment, our groups at a grassroots level raise that money to change that. We force people to make room at that table, to make sure our chair can be fit right in the middle, and we make our voices heard. That's why I think groups like this and others creating our own 3 to 5 policy points. We're not going to be able to solve all of the ills of this country. But for example, I'll tell you this, women, Black men, one of the first things that we're going to work with the current Biden administration and hopefully the Harris administration in the first 100 days is passing National Crown Act legislation. Crown Act makes sure that you can wear your hair in a natural setting while at work and at school. There's a young man in Texas who has still not been able to graduate high school because he has locks. That is a clear indication from the administration. We hear you and we see you. It is not a substantive win of changing systematic, the prison industrial complex. It's not going to change our education system, but it's going to say to Black people, here is one that I'm doing for you right out the gate. And it is an easy win. If there is something that the African community wants from our administration, whether it's on immigration reform, I think we sometimes get in these silos and we have to figure out how can we come with our brown brothers and sisters and say, we are with you on immigration reform. We have resources and we have a voice. Let's figure out what those 3 to 5 are. And as soon as those 3 to 5 are accomplished, great. I got 3 or 5 more that we need you to work on. It's not just a blank check. You got to hold them accountable. And once you start having that voice, then you need to start learning where are the systems of power. How do you get on the campaign early on to do that advanced work, to start seating it? I would never say this publicly. I think we're recording this right now, right? Are we? Yes?
Yeah, we're recording it and
Okay.
we're live stream on YouTube.
But I would
That's okay.
also say that there is a space in which we need to make sure we're doing our engagement at a long and foreseen way. I think there's previous politicians who found a way during their transitions to have folks be a part of the transition team. And if you look at Project 2025, that's how they were doing their work 2 years ago, 3 years ago. If we're now just talking about the transition, we're already 3 years behind some other people. So if you haven't looked at the plum book, if you're not aware of where these things are, I think really making sure you can have that space for yourself is vitally important.
Thank you.
I am going to leave you guys with that gem. Call me anytime. I'm happy to be here with you. I just don't want the light to go out in the car one more time, but I'll be back anytime you all need me between now and the election. And I'll be here after in November and December and in January. So call me anytime you need me.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Khalil. We
Khalil.
really
Thank you,
appreciate
thank
you.
you.
Have a
You're
good
very
night
welcome.
and be safe.
Have a good night.
All righty.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I wanted a quick question for Holder, if that's possible.
Let's get Mahini. She's been
Okay.
waiting for a while.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Fatmata. First of all, again, kudos to you and Dr. Fawad. This was amazing. Again, the speakers are fantastic. My question for Hulda is, it's important in terms of educating our African community or Africans in the diaspora effectively in terms of, voting and the importance of voting and getting engaged. And what I'm finding is there's this a natural distrust as it pertains to politicians, because as a West African in particular, you're used to politicians, being corrupt, or corruption and politics kind of go hand in hand. And so there is because of the distrust, it's extremely challenging to really galvanize. When I'm from Sierra Leone / Gambia, that's my background. And so just galvanizing them. I work in the healthcare space. So there's a lot of us in this area in the healthcare space. But like I said, the challenges that I'm facing is just the natural distrust. And so I find that it's definitely important to empower the Africans in the diaspora for just informed decision-making as it pertains to voting and the electoral process, just civic engagement, combating misinformation, and overall just kind of, reaching advocacy and representation. And my challenge is, it's just a natural mistrust. I don't know if there's some sort of pointers or recommendations you can provide that might assist in this, in breaking this barrier.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that question. And I think it's something that we have to acknowledge, especially with the backgrounds that we all come from countries that obviously, when we look at politicians, we associate them with corruption, we associate them with all of these things. But I think for me, it comes down to the relationships. We Africans thrive in relationships, build in community, right? And what has helped me is my track record with the community. I think as you continue to be in this space, you're creating repertoire within your community. You're creating a space where people can come to you and say, well, Mahini is a trusted source that I can come to and really believe her in what she say. Because I see this a lot, especially even with voting, right? I get a lot of people who come to me and say, Huda, who am I voting for? These people have no interest in doing their own research about, the different candidates. I would love for all voters to be educated voters and vote because you truly have done your research and that candidate aligns with your values. But we have a long way to go. So that word of mouth goes a long way. And yes, there's that mistrust, but I think the more we get engaged in this political arena, because not a lot of us are in this political civic engagement space, compared to the population of the African immigrants in this country. So my answer to you is continue working on those relationships because we thrive in relationships, we trust in relationships. And when somebody can point to you and say, that is a trusted community leader there, and when she said something, she's done her homework, she's done her research, you become that source of information to your community in general.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, Mayeni. I mean, just a quick reminder, obviously, for those who have not donated, we have a Africans in the Diaspora. There's a link on the chat box there. Donate $5, $10, $20, whatever you can provide. That donation go directly to the campaign, to the Harris campaign. But we get credit as Africans in the Diaspora. And this stuff, at the end of the day, these are some of the things we want to use to leverage for our next step. So definitely, if you haven't donated, please go ahead and donate. And if you have, please feel free to donate for the second and third time. So just a gentle reminder for those who have not donated, it's on the chat box there. And Chris and I believe Stephanie, are you guys ready?
Hold on. Imam Teslim has had his hand up for a while, so let's
sure.
go to him real quick. Yeah. Okay. Imam Teslim, do you still have a question, comment?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love the way Khalil and of course Holder speak to the issue of the black vote. Whilst I agree we are not a monolithic group as black, but truth must be told, and they did it right. Obama quite recently was doing something, I think, in Pennsylvania, and he was really appealing to the black voters, especially not seeing the enthusiasm that they had for him when he was running. And I think we all see that. So it's just the plain truth. We have to find a way to get our brothers to do what is right. And I think for those who are doing the campaign, those who are in front, those who are coordinating, this is what should be done to actually see them coming out, to all of us coming out to vote. And it's a lot of talk. And then we're second guessing, we are doubting. And I think if we are really serious about our future, especially as Black immigrants, I think that's what we needed to do. I was just wondering, Holden now is on, if she can speak to especially what Obama did with regards to appealing, especially the Black men on voting, and how she can still have a voice to that. Thank you.
So I think we sometimes forget the space and the environment Barack Obama was running in. This was a Black man running for the first time in terms of, going for the highest seat in the land. And the magnitude and the weight of that task, right? And so there was a lot of expectations, the expectations that the Bill Clintons and the Bushes and all of those people had were nothing compared to Barack Obama's expectations, and especially from the Black community. This man was running literally to represent the most diverse country in the whole entire world, right, in terms of races. And he had some really high expectations when it came to the Black community. So when we sit here and we look at what he wanted to do, right, we also have to give him grace for him literally being in that space and what he tried to do. Keep in mind, he didn't have the support of, both the House and the Senate, having we call it here in Minnesota, the trifecta, right, to execute what he wanted to do. Everything he wanted to do was literally pushed back time and time and time again. So sometimes I look back and I'm like, we expected this man to be Jesus, and he couldn't be that, He did the best. The fact that Obamacare passed was a miracle to begin with, right? And so I always have to remind people, yes, candidates, we have expectations for them, but we also have to sit back and wonder, what environment are they in and what are they able to do? And so going back to Imam, I think for me, what Obama did for me, whether or not he accomplished his full, as candidates, we sit here and we are in the field talking about, this is what I want to do for the people. But once you leave the campaigning and come to the other side of governing, is a completely different animal. I was talking to a lot of the current legislators at the Minnesota legislature, and I was talking to the Speaker of the House. I was talking to the Majority Leader, and they were like, Hulda, all of these things that you're saying, they gave me a reality check. When you come in here, you will only have one or two things that you can really fight for and get it through the finish line. So start thinking about prioritizing that. And then going back to, I want to touch on what Dr. Ford said about, money and donating. I think the organizers of this group, we have to think long-term. Khalil talked about sustainability, looking at it from a long haul. Right now, the policies that are going to be passing are policies that have already been in the works few years. Right now, I'm literally getting PACs calling me, talking about, we already know you're going to win. This is what we want you to champion. This is this and this and that. And I'm sitting here going, I know my African people are going to come in January talking about, so you need to champion this. This work has already started now. So I want to encourage this team to consider creating a PAC. I was so naive when I entered into this space because they were like, are you going to take PAC money? And I was like, no, I'm not going to. It's grassroots, woo, woo, woo. When I realized the power of PACs, y'all, that's where the real power in politics lie. When you see policies passed, look behind that policy and who are the lobbyists, who are the PACs that are really championing that policy. So in order for us to have that collective power, and especially if we're talking about national level, let's create a PAC, right? That way, we are able to raise money, number one, because money speaks in politics. I'll give you a really good example. Right now in Minnesota, the Somali community got together with their PAC, gave the House of Representatives close to $500,000. Guess what that does? That gives them, because there's a couple of legislators who are Somali, that gives them seats at committees, because these bills that are being created are going through different committees before they even reach to the floor to be debated on and then moved over to the Senate and then eventually to the governor's desk, right? They are setting themselves up so that way, when they bring up their issues and challenges, they're literally will be put on top of the line when it comes to their bills being passed, right? So I want to encourage us to think about long-term sustainability. This is a great start. We started in July. We can't do a whole lot right now because of this session is already done, like Khalil said. Bills have already been drafted. They're waiting to be debated on, go through committees. So I definitely want to encourage that. And as Africans, let me say this. We no longer can afford to operate in African time. We can no longer afford to do that. Because if we continue to operate in African time, right, we're missing out. Right now, if you try to create a bill and bring it to legislators, they're going to be like, I already have bills ready to go. So I definitely want to encourage this team to consider creating a PAC around this vision so that we can start mobilizing, raising money, and then creating an agenda for the African immigrant community, because whatever is affecting African immigrant community in New Jersey, it's affecting the African immigrant here in Minnesota. So when we talk about an agenda for the African diaspora, let this team be the team that creates that umbrella, create that national PAC that actually takes this to the table with Hollis's team and say, we contributed this much. That's why Ford continues to say, give money because he'll contribute, because it'll count, you know, that gives us a voice, y'all. So that's why I want to encourage, even that $5, it goes a long way in terms of actually letting people in power know that we are here and that we're not going away.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much. Obviously, your presence here and your word of wisdom is inspiring, and everything you said in respect to the next steps, we've been deliberating that. We have to do it. This is just Africans. The reason why our parents came in to come get an education and go back. But the last 20 years, we haven't been going back. We're here, and culturally, we haven't been getting involved in politics. And I think it's about time we're changing that. It was good to see young people going to the next step. And we have to create a PAC, obviously, to support Africans and who wants to run for offices within the US. So we are thinking of the next step for sure. If you want to hang out with us, feel free. I think the next step is Chris and Stephanie. Any news, any updates in the news, guys?
Always updates in the news.
Always.
Always.
Go ahead, Steph. I'll let you go first.
I know, my turn. Okay, first, I know Khalil stepped on a couple of stuff that I wanted to go over. So let me just celebrate on the first day of early voting for the November election. More than 300,000 Georgians cast their ballots, doubling the previous day one record by midday on Wednesday. Over 88,000 votes had already been cast.
They are ready.
300,000. We ain't playing over here in Georgia.
Yes.
The total surpassed, they believe that the projected total would surpass 500,000 by day's end, reflecting strong voter enthusiasm. And notably, former President Jimmy Carter voted by mail. So understand that also. A couple of other things in court battles. Georgia judge blocked a last-minute rule passed by the state election board that would have required poll workers to hand count the total number of ballots cast on election day. The judge said the rule was too much, too late, and would cause administrative chaos. Understand that this rule was supported by 3 election board members associated with Donald Trump. Okay,
that was a big win for democracy.
Big win for the Democrats. Okay, the Nebraska Supreme Court ruled the state must allow people who have completed sentences for felony convictions to register to vote, restoring voting rights to thousands. This comes after the state refused to register these eligible voters. So that's a big win. Also, Nebraska. A federal judge halted Alabama's voter purge program that the state claimed targeted non-citizens but removed naturalized citizens from the active voter rolls. The judge said the program violates federal law, limiting voter removals close to an election. So another big in Alabama. Let's see what else I have here. A pro-voter group sued over part of Georgia's new mass voter challenge law that makes it easier to challenge voters' eligibility. The group claimed that the provision puts military and overseas voters at risk of disenfranchisement and violates federal laws. So that's in the pipeline. And the Minnesota Republican Party filed a lawsuit alleging that Minneapolis area Hennepin County did not appoint any member of the county absentee ballot board from the party's list of recommended candidates, violating the state election law. So, Hulda, we'll be watching out for the outcome of that one very soon. And
Hulda, we got news for you. We got news for you, Hulda.
So let's keep an eye out on that one, Hulda, for us, and keep us updated.
I will. Excellent. Definitely.
Excellent.
And Chris, take it away, babe.
Yeah, you covered most of the ones I wanted to share, but to add to the Georgia one, there were 6 more decisions that were struck down by the judges in Georgia.
Exactly.
The hand count that you mentioned, and then there was there's another one that those three goons wanted to impose that got shut down. But anyway, fast forward in Florida, DeSantis' Department of Health decided they were making a decision. They said they were going to start suing the media for running ads against Amendment 4. For those of you who don't know, Amendment 4 is the right for women to make a decision about their bodies. So DeSantis' state government will go to start suing. So Democrats and some freedom rights groups have taken them to court to say, hey, you got to stop that and not proceed. And last but not least, I'm not sure where everybody was this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern, but I implore you all to go find Kamala, Madam VP's interview with Brett Baer on Fox News this evening. It was a thing of beauty. She crushed it, destroyed him, Fox News, and all the MAGA rhetoric and propaganda.
It was excellent. Excellent.
It was amazing.
So, Chris, wasn't there something similar in Virginia about voter registration? Wasn't there something similar in
Yes,
Virginia?
there is there was a bunch of voter registration purged out, which they beat the states being sued. But the most important one is, and there's a little county in Virginia where the election officers have decided that they are not going to use machines to count the ballots. They only want a hand count, which of course is just to slow the process down. So I expect that to be challenged in the courts. More to come on that. Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, and then there's another issue going on in Ohio with ballot boxes, early voting ballot boxes. I think a sheriff and an election officer in I forgot which city it is of the town. They literally went and removed all the ballot boxes, saying that no one can go drop ballot boxes on behalf of their family members, handicapped, disabled. So just pay attention to that. I'm sure that's going to be overturned.
Boy, these people,
the sheriff, and the judge are like, we don't, or the election officer was saying, we don't answer to anybody but to ourselves. And I think that's going to go up to the state. Yeah.
They are kings already.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So does
in the law,
new
yeah,
to
in
share
the law,
or questions
yeah,
at all?
I just want to share something in the law that Brian Kemp signed in Georgia. They rushed to do right after the 2020 election. There is a statement or a clause in there that states that all early voting results should be declared by 8 p.m. on voting day. So we're going to get a very large drop, and this is the madness behind the early voting. So probably by 8 p.m. on election day from Georgia, all early voting and mail-in ballots should be by law declared 8 p.m. on voting day. So we may be getting 25–30% of that voting drop by 8 p.m. on November 5th.
Wow. Yeah. Well, anyone has anything to share in the panel? Any questions at all?
I just want to say that the speakers are very inspiring in terms of the direction. And, you know, we are onto something with this group that we have. But, you know, my thinking is we have to address Hurricane Trump before we could focus on the 2 or 3 things, because if we allow that hurricane to make a landfall, our 2 or 3 things would be really bad. You know, I saw they interviewed a lady on CNN today who said, I've already applied for dual citizenship in Ireland just in case Trump wins. I'm bailing out of the USA. That is how serious it is. I mean, this lady was almost in her 60s late, and she said, I've applied for dual citizenship so I could leave this country. But this hurricane is really bad, and so we need to take it seriously, and we need to change the trajectory of it, and we could only do it through the votes. So the polls don't mean anything to me. I don't look at them. I'm energized, and I'm even taking my 97-year-old mother to go vote on Saturday early, just
I mean, Dr. Bull, I totally agree with you. I mean, for some of us who have been here this long, naturalized citizens, we don't want to worry about X, Y, and Z. Project 2025 is trying to get rid of birthright citizenship. If you're not born here, you can't be a citizen at all. And these
Lindsey Graham just dropped that bill.
And these guys are not joking. These guys are not joking. There are a lot of African immigrants. They think, oh, I'm not getting involved. I'm just worrying about paying my bills. Before you know it, that citizenship that you have, you will lose it.
Yeah.
And people are not taking this stuff seriously. If Trump wins, inside 100 days, these guys will deliver on this type of stuff.
Yeah, and now on the application, if he wins, there are going to be 2 check boxes. One, citizen of the United States and naturalized citizen. And you know what that means. That's not even a dog whistle. That's a barking to say, if it's a naturalized citizen, don't hire this guy or this lady or this child. So that's a one way to discriminate when he would put it on the application. So folks, a lot
for those who understand U.S. history, there was a time where Chinese Americans couldn't even be citizens. I mean, literally a group of people were banned. I mean, these things have happened. What we're seeing now with Project 2025, this is nothing new. This type of stuff have happened before. And comments on Japanese and during the Second World War happened. So these things have happened. So some people might think, oh, this is not possible. These things are possible. So let's not take it for granted.
Very true. I did want to add that I just wanted to ask, could you send the link for the 26th again for canvassing to Philadelphia? I want to see if I can get more people.
I believe it's on the group, Maini. That was I'll ask Fatmata to resend it. It should be on the group. And we had a great time canvassing in York, Pennsylvania. I learned a lot. We engaged lots of people in York, so that was really fun. The campaign paid for it, so there's there's free transportation and stuff. And we got it was a great time. We're hoping to go to the suburbs of Philadelphia. So Brother Sakal, we couldn't come your way. They sent us all the way to York.
Yeah. I was excited that I was going to meet my my colleagues from DMV area, but Fatmata called me, that texted me and said, hey, they're taking us to York. I said, oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you guys had a lot of fun. And we starting from Friday, we want to do a general voter education on Woodland Avenue in Philadelphia at a local African restaurant called Manding Restaurant. Just to educate our people. There will be folks from Mali, Sierra Leone, and Liberia, and other parts of Africa, and from the island, just to encourage them. Those that have not registered will also have a tables to register them. And next week I will be organizing a GOTV. I may have like a marching band, or we'll team it as marching to the poll. So they recently opened a local satellite election commission satellite office. So we're going to at least probably walk about 2 or 4 blocks to that area and come back with the marching band. We are working on that. So just to create some excitement in the community and to continue to encourage our people, because it's not easy. We are moving from churches to mosques and getting our people, registering them, and many of them are getting it. And to tell them that, well, Trump, the threat that Trump poses, to our various communities. Lastly, I want to congratulate our speaker, our panelist, Hulda, if she's still on the line, and on her win during the past primary, and to also encourage her to reach out to our primary challengers so that they can consolidate their efforts for the general election. So again, I was listening to her, what she passed through in terms of getting the support from the legislatures. I did, experience the same thing when I ran, in Pennsylvania here for District 185. People were saying, oh, hey, do not give chance to these immigrants because the moment you give chance to them, yeah, they're going to. So I just tell them, look, no one is in. You shouldn't feel that you guys are entitled to these elected positions. All right. Many of the immigrants are the ones that are electing you guys. So why can't we ourselves, throw our house in the race? Okay. So again, congratulations to all our candidates, and let's go and do something. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe we have the hand up. Is it Jonas Lemer? Please, the floor is yours.
Yes. Hi to everybody. I appreciate being here as usual. I just want to congratulate all of you and congratulate Huldah. I did donate to your campaign, just did. I did donate this morning also to here. So I'm donating, and I just want to say something about the best way to get our people to donate more. I remember when Obama was running and we were doing campaign with him, there were a way for each person to be involved in a way that you can raise more with your friend directly, so that you know that come from specifically this community or that community. If you guys can think about that later on, maybe not this time, but later on, doing that, because Africans tend to give usually to people that they know. I'm actually a president of my community here in the United States, and most of the time we raise more money by directly addressing people that we know. So usually, especially people that haven't been here for a long time, not used to politics, that's the way to raise more money. So that's what I will add to the discussion, and I congratulate this group and everybody on the line, and I think we'll win. It's just that we just have to go through the pain, the growing pain, and November 6th will be a joyful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Sister Huldah, if you could drop in your donation link, that would be great. So we all are a membership here or can have access to that information.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to do that.
Well, guys, and in the East Coast is about 10:25. We have 5 minutes left. Anyone have anything they'd like to share or updates at all? Someone who hasn't spoken at all, someone who's been quiet. And again, Sister Huldah's about to drop her donation link. Feel free to donate to her as well. And feel free to donate to the Africans in the Diaspora donation link. Like I said, when you donate, this does $5, $10, $20, whatever you could provide, that will go a long way.
Yeah, this is Marie. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Marie.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to Maryland, because we feel at home here. And I am Marie Mecca. I'm from Cameroon, but I have been a community leader in the DMV for years here. I wanted to congratulate Kamala and that saying that she has my support and our support, the whole community, my own community too, because what she's doing, being a woman in the leadership is a woman right, and the woman right is a human right. So so we're very proud of her. Now, what I have now is a political request, I'm bilingual in French, but they say the doléance politique, for her to think about us or the whole administration think about African women, African immigrant women in the leadership too, on the ground, exactly, because there is no criteria to be a community leader, or there is no condition to come to take some responsibility in the community, especially when it comes about finding solution by us being community organizers, opinion leaders. We build the trust, now we are like solution leaders too. But sometimes it's very frustrating when you face some difficulties on the ground, like, okay, people call, they trust you, you are their voice. And now you face some difficulties, like, okay, let's go and apply for the passport. They ask you for a green card. When you go to the green card, they ask you for passport. Everything is expired. So we as women, sometimes, I don't know if the men face same situation. It's very easy to lose our respect, our honor, our everything, and even some resources. We all busy at work, even if you don't see us outside there. My Kenyan sister just said something hours ago, that a minute ago, that some people call you at midnight. They ask, Marie, who can I vote for? We are at work too for the community. We work hard. Anything that happen outside, we are at work, but it's a volunteering job the whole time, but it's a full-time job for us. So we ask her to think about us by like valuing some of us, our status, in danger, some us, like, to think about us, for us to keep our respect, our honor, and the trust, and we to remain the voice of the no voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you so much. There's a question on the Q&A about T-shirts. I think it's a Baller that asked that question. I think this is something that we've talked about in the past, Baller. We don't have a Africans in the Diaspora for Harris-Walz T-shirt, but I still think it's not too late. I don't know if my brother Ike is still on here. Brother Ike, we got a logo. We have to do this before the end of this season. We got 20 more days to go. People have asked about this. I think it's still not late. These are things that we're able to pay for ourselves. If it's $10, $15, $20, we need to get T-shirts. It'd be nice for all of us to have our T-shirt on election night when we have the watch parties, so we'll be able to enjoy the win. So that's just my thoughts. I hope you guys agree with that. I think we should have a T-shirt.
Okay, sure, that's fine. If we can get a rough idea of sizes, these T-shirts can't be one size fit all. So if you can get a rough idea of what the average sizes are, we can try and get them out. But the issue is that this group is very diverse, and we have folks who are all the way in California. So we just have to make sure we can ship it across to them too.
Yeah.
Do we have a website? If we have a website, we can put it on a website. We can order from the website, and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, well, we're going to work on that the next couple of days, but I just want to give you a heads up that people have been asking about it. And it's a good thing we have a design already about our logo. I think we should definitely do it. It'd be nice to have that T-shirt when people go out to canvass, or the day of the elections watch party, for us to have that T-shirt. I believe Wilhelmina has her hands up.
Yes, my name is Wilhelmina Vincent from Minnesota.
Okay.
I will say thank you to this group.
Wow, lots of Minnesotans here today.
Yeah, though I haven't been campaigning around, but I've been talking to a lot of families and friends and encouraging people, even at my work site, to vote for Kamala. And even though we have like 3 or 4 weeks for the election, I just wanted to take this time I want to try to go out there to do some campaigning, because I think the more people we talk to, the more votes we're going to get. So I just want to say thank you to this group, and I appreciate all that you do, and you all have a blessed night.
Thank you, Wilhelmina. Now, Wilhelmina Holder is in Minnesota as well. I'm not sure if you're in her district. If you are, make sure you vote for her as well, or tell your people about her as well.
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah, we in the same area, but I'm in Brooklyn Center actually. But I will talk to
Excellent.
family and friends to vote for her.
Excellent. So, anyone else hands us up? We have about another minute or two.
Yes, mine is there. You see my hand?
Is it David?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, not too much. I appreciate you all for having this organization set up. I don't know how long it's been in operation. My question here is, do we have, well, two questions. One, do we have a platform on the African, the diaspora? And also, if we do, do we have any spokesperson for us? Those are my two questions.
Well, great question, David. Is Pamata, are you on?
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
on.
Okay, Pamata, you want to take those questions?
What's the question?
He wanted to know if we have a platform and do we have someone that speaks on behalf of our platform? Is that a question, David? Did I get your question?
Yeah, you got it. Those are the two questions. And then the general comment is at least taking time to organize this association. The platform, what you are doing is good. And I don't know how long it's been you form it, but I've been looking out for things like this and I'm excited. But I was involved in a lot of organizations like this. It started, it didn't take a long time, it died. Okay. And then when I was involved with a lot of fighting for I'm from Nigeria, I live in Maryland. When we were fighting the military rules in Nigeria, the people working for us said, look, who's your spokesperson? All of you talking, who is this? So that's why I'm asking this. I don't know whether you have somebody for that. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Famata.
So we started basically when President Biden stepped down and he endorsed Vice President Harris. And that was the impetus to Africans in the diaspora for Harris, now Harris-Walz. And our main focus at this particular time is to ensure that we mobilize our continental African community in the US behind the Harris-Walz ticket and ensure that November 5th, we win the election. The long goal is to make sure that this group is an anchor and a group that advocates not just at the White House or governmental entities, but also in reference to ensuring our community members have access to corporations, organizations, things of that nature. So the whole idea is to piggyback off of Win with Black Women, which has been around since 2020 and has done a really good job in advocating for and changing the narrative of Black women in this country. And at the end of it, to give ourselves a voice, make sure we are heard, make sure we're seen, and our issues are in the forefront. That's the bigger goal. But the short term is to focus on getting Vice President Harris elected, because if she's not in the office, it's much harder for us to have access in that space. But again, the focus is election in 20 days. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. I just want either she is elected or not. I think this organization should continue. The focus we are having should be, for just like we have all these people speaking to us. I've been in your meeting now three times, and I joined people talking to us. They started individually and then get something going. But if we unite in group, all in the nation, we have convention, we have meeting, we have everything on Zoom or whatever. I think we'll be stronger and people will respect us. Just like you said, we don't unite, nobody cares for us. Things are evolving, they are changing. Our young kids now, we are talking to them and they are interested. So that's what our main goal now is to get Harris elected. But if she, I hope she does. If not, we should continue. Just like this, our lady from Minnesota, we have a lot of them. So
David, thank you. She's definitely gonna win, David.
Thank you.
And I understand you live in Maryland. Don't forget to vote for Angela Holsterbrook. Make sure you vote down the ballot for Maryland. We do need we need Senator Andrew Holsterbrook. So please make sure you vote for her as well. And we've done the work collectively. She's definitely gonna win.
I'm campaigning for her also. I'm talking to everybody. That's okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So Hulda wanted to say a few words before she heads out.
Yes, Hulda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to stay here and talk all night because of how energized I am. I feel like this is you guys fueling my cup because I am exhausted. I am tired. But spaces like this, I think, are so important, not only for candidates, but also for the people who are actually doing the work, who are passionate. So I want to take an opportunity before I dash out because I have young kids that I have to put to bed. So excuse me if I leave here shortly, but I wanted to thank you so much for the leadership of this group. The first time I spoke to my sister Fatmata, I was on board. I was like, how high do you want me to jump? I will jump, right? And so this is, I just want to encourage this group because most of us have been a part of, groups where the vision is amazing, the vision is attainable, but we somehow, for whatever reason, we're not able to maintain that sustainability of the group of vision. So I want to encourage this group that we have to move together. We have to be able to put our personal agendas aside and have a group collected agenda. If we want sustainability for this group and tap into the potential that this group has, we have to be sold into a collective vision. So I want to encourage each and every one of us, for those of us who want, to gain value from this group, put in the work. I want to encourage you, put in the work. Some of you guys have been in it since this organization this group was formed, right? You guys, again, are not getting paid by the Harris campaign. You guys are putting your own resources into this, your own time. I want to encourage you, continue doing that. The rest of us who've been sitting on the sideline, who just got introduced to this group, bring in your skill set, bring in your network, contribute to this. In our African context, we're going to be honest, right? We are so caught up in titles and massaging egos for whatever, reason. That's a part of our DNA. But I want to encourage this group. That's what's going to kill this group when we get caught up in who is who, what can I get from this group, instead of thinking, what can this group do together as a collective? So I want to leave you with this. There's a lot of untapped potential. There is a lot of resources out here. One of the other reason why I ran is because I realized that all the different states across the whole entire US, they have their own international collaboration, sister cities. I continued seeing Minnesota going to Japan, going here, going there. They never tapped into the African continent. Guess what? When we have our own people in office, we can create those bridges. We can literally build bridges with our businesses back home where we're tapping into their resources and their services and products and connecting them back to our various states. That's the power of getting into office, not only up there, but also locally. For example, here in Minnesota, we have sister cities all across around the world. How amazing would it be to say we have connections with all of the different communities from the African continent represented, where literally a representative from an African continent has the power to go petition some of these governments in the continent of Africa. Because right now, you, Dr. Field, maybe you have that kind of network. I don't. I can't go and talk to Ruto, my president of Kenya, and say, I need you to address the consulate issues that the diaspora has, that the constituency here in Minnesota has. I don't have that power. But if I'm in office, I have a good shot of literally walking into his office and say, as a representative of Minnesota, this constituency, we need an embassy in Minnesota from your administration, and they will work on that. That's the power of getting in office in this country. So I want to encourage those of you in here who are interested. I know Joe talked about him running, continue to run, because it's not just supporting the constituency here in the US, it's also the power that comes from that office that can actually make an impact, not only here, but also back home. Another example, I remember last year, I petitioned my then representative to literally talk to health partners, to literally outfit the whole entire hospital system in where I come from, my village. And they did it like that, just because of that office. So it's not only just politics. We can have influence in education back home, in healthcare back home, in even governance back home. Because if you go back and talk to these people about, hey, this is, instead of them coming here and doing benchmarking in the US, we can go there and talk about this is what a true democracy looks like. Instead of trying to change politics back home, we can influence politics as elected officials here. So with that, thank you so much, everybody. If you're able to donate, please donate. I still need money to run a successful race, and continue doing what you have to do for the Kamala Harris, because our democracy, why we moved here, is at stake this November. And whatever happens this November is going to affect us one way or another. And we want to make sure we're on the right side of history. Thank you so much.
Guys, give Anna a big round of applause. Definitely, we are going to donate to your campaign, and we wish you good luck. And thank you for taking your busy schedule out of your family to be with us. We're inspired, and whatever we could do collectively as a group to support you now and in the future, we'll do that. And to our family here, the African Diaspora family, thank you guys for on a Wednesday night. It's after 10 o'clock. Taking time off your busy schedule. I see how engaged you are, and everything you've said and everything everyone has said. Definitely, our goal is to get the Harris-Walz campaign to win in November, and there are lots of next steps that we're going to do. But let's focus on making sure this Hurricane Trump stays out in the Atlantic, or he does not land on the Atlantic, stay in the Atlantic there. So thank you guys. It's after 10 o'clock. See you again next Wednesday. We're going to be doing a weekly Zoom meeting like today, and we look forward to seeing you guys, and stay engaged and continue to mobilize. Thank you and good night.
Don't forget the trip on the 26th. We'll put the
yes. There's a trip that's going to Pennsylvania on the 26th. We'll keep you guys in touch on the WhatsApp group there, and the informations are there. There'll be free transportation. Take a look at your emails. Free transportation. Get out the vote. Pennsylvania, October 26th. Thank you guys, and we'll talk about everything else, including the t-shirts. And thank you guys for being here and taking time out of your busy schedules.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. It was a good session. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.
And get just $19 a month.